Joining me this afternoon is Bill Hing, the professor of law and migration studies at the University of San Francisco. He's also the author of a new book called Humanizing Immigration. Thanks so much for being here.
Thank you.
So how did we get to this point? More and more polls are showing that Americans are actually against immigration. How did we get to that point?
Yeah, that's a different trend because in years past, immigrants have mostly been favored in the United States. And I think that's what's happened, and it's become politicized, that politicians are constantly confronted with the issue of the border. And there's news of migrants coming, caravans, and Donald Trump put it in the headlines when he first started running in 2016, and it has stayed there ever since.
But do you think that this is something that many Americans have been feeling, but just haven't felt like they had a platform to voice those opinions?
Yes and no. I think that most Americans still believe in the immigration ideal. And what they are experiencing right now is a labeling of the border migrants as people who are problems without knowing much about their background. And so every year I go to the border at least twice. And I just was there in October, for example. At the clinic that we have at the University of San Francisco, we represent over 500 migrants, mostly from Central America. And if you just spent some time with them, you would realize that they are fleeing violence, serious violence, gang, cartel, and domestic violence. They're not coming here just to find work. They're not coming here to do us harm. And I think that's what the American public is missing, is they don't have the information on who these people are.
All right, let's go back to this feud between the state and federal officials over U.S. border policies. What can states legally do or not do?
That's a really good question. States do not have the power to regulate immigration. That's a federal job, and the Supreme Court reaffirmed that 12 years ago in a case against Arizona. The Supreme Court threw out most of Arizona's anti-immigration laws, saying, you can't do this. This is a federal job. So Governor Abbott in Texas is testing the limits. He's operating something called Operation Lone Star, where he's authorized Texas Rangers to arrest migrants and to prosecute people as trespassers. And so we're heading for a clash. This is going to the Supreme Court. This week when the Texas Border Rangers refused access to the Border Patrol to help save the lives of the 3 migrants that died, that's a precursor to this clash getting to the Supreme Court. That within the next 2 years, the Supreme Court's going to have to decide again, can Texas also regulate immigrants? Or are we going to go by 200 years of past precedent, which only the federal government can regulate immigration?
So what do you think the decision is what do you think the Supreme Court's going to do?
The composition of the court has changed in the last 12 years.
Very conservative.
So I think it's a crapshoot. I think that it's going to be a close call whether or not this very conservative court might let states do a certain amount of immigration enforcement. And honestly, I worry.
Well, the Biden administration says Texas officials blocked Border Patrol from saving the lives of those migrants. You know, when you're talking about the legality of all of that, we're talking about saving lives. I mean, how is that up for debate?
Exactly. I mean, that's the humanitarian side of immigration that we often lose sight of. We think we've commodified migrants at the border. We just think of them as a group, and we don't understand that some of them are bringing young children, and they're only seeking safety. And so we ought to really take off our blindfolds and look at these folks as human beings who are trying to ask us for help.
I mean, it's interesting to see how the implications from what's going on in Texas is going to affect what's going on in California, though.
Well, California is the root of where immigrants still continue to come. And the politics of California changed 20, 30 years ago with Proposition 187. That changed the politics of the state, and demographics helped to change those politics. And that may be happening in other parts of the country, including the South and including Texas.
All right, Professor Bill Hing, thank you so much for joining us from the University of San Francisco.